I'm Elena Rodriguez, 31 years old, and I thought I knew how cruel my family could be. That November afternoon phone call from my cousin Maria proved me wrong. She was calling to ask what dish I was bringing to Mom's elaborate Thanksgiving dinner at Bella Vista, the upscale Italian restaurant downtown, when I had to tell her I hadn't been invited. The silence that followed was deafening as Maria processed that our family's successful restaurateur had been excluded from the holiday celebration. What they didn't know would turn their feast into my ultimate business victory. Have you ever been excluded from family events only to hold all the power they never knew you had? Drop your predictions about what my family was about to discover in the comments below, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe, because this Thanksgiving revenge story has a twist that will leave you absolutely stunned. The family exclusion hadn't started with Thanksgiving. It had been my reality since I chose entrepreneurship over the traditional path my parents had mapped out for their daughters. While my sister Carmen followed expectations by becoming a nurse and marrying her college boyfriend, I'd built a restaurant empire that my family either didn't understand or actively dismissed as risky business ventures that would eventually fail. My journey in the restaurant industry had begun during college when I worked as a server to pay for my business degree. The long hours and demanding customers taught me everything about hospitality, operations, and what made dining experiences memorable or forgettable. While other students complained about restaurant work, I was studying every aspect of the business with the intensity of someone planning to revolutionize the industry. After graduation, instead of seeking corporate employment like my parents expected, I'd used my savings and a small business loan to purchase a failing neighborhood cafe. My family's reaction was immediate concern about my unrealistic expectations and suggestions that I find a stable job with benefits and predictable income. Elena, restaurants fail at a 90% rate, Dad had warned me during family dinner. You're throwing away your education and your future on something that's basically gambling with food. The cafe had been transformed through 18-hour days, complete menu overhauls, and customer service that turned first-time visitors into regulars who brought their friends. Within 2 years, the small neighborhood spot was generating enough profit to fund the acquisition of a second location. But my family's response to my success was consistently underwhelming. When I opened my second restaurant, Mom's reaction was worry about my work-life balance rather than celebration of my business expansion. When I hired my first management team, Dad expressed concern about employee overhead instead of recognizing my growth into a legitimate business owner. The pattern was established and reinforced constantly. Elena's restaurant success was a lucky anomaly that would eventually collapse, while Carmen's nursing career and conventional marriage were stable achievements worth celebrating and supporting. My third acquisition had been the game changer that established me as a serious player in the local restaurant scene. Bella Vista was a historic property that had housed failed restaurants for years before I purchased it and spent 6 months on complete renovation and concept development. The transformation of Bella Vista into the city's premier upscale dining destination had required every skill I'd developed over 5 years of restaurant ownership. The menu featured elevated comfort food with impeccable presentation, the wine list included carefully curated selections from small vineyards, and the service standards rivaled the finest establishments in major metropolitan areas. But I'd kept my ownership of Bella Vista private from my family, operating the restaurant through a management company to avoid the inevitable commentary about my expensive hobbies and unrealistic business expansion. They knew I owned restaurants, but they didn't understand the scope or profitability of what I'd built. The decision to maintain privacy wasn't about secrecy, it was about protecting my achievements from family members who'd spent years minimizing my success while treating Carmen's conventional milestones as more impressive and worthy of celebration. Carmen's life had unfolded exactly as our parents had envisioned. Marriage at 25, house in the suburbs, 2 children, and a nursing career that provided steady income and community respect. Every family gathering included updates about Carmen's promotions, her children's achievements, and her husband's advancement in his accounting career. My restaurant success, meanwhile, was mentioned only as background information or cautionary tales about the stress and uncertainty of small business ownership. "Elena works so hard at those restaurants," Mom would tell relatives, her tone suggesting concern rather than pride about my achievements. The family dynamic had crystallized around Carmen as the successful daughter who'd made smart life choices, while I was the unpredictable entrepreneur whose business interests were interesting, but ultimately less valuable than conventional stability and traditional family priorities. Recent family conflicts had centered around my failure to prioritize family events over business obligations. When I'd missed Carmen's son's birthday party due to a critical staffing crisis at one of my restaurants, the family response was disappointment in my work obsession rather than understanding about business ownership responsibilities. "Elena, you need to understand that family comes first," Mom had lectured me after the birthday party incident. "Your restaurants will survive without you for one afternoon, but family relationships need nurturing and attention." The suggestion that my business success was less important than attendance at family social events was typical of how my achievements were consistently minimized in favor of Carmen's needs and our parents' expectations about family loyalty and priority. But the most painful aspect of family dynamics was how my financial success was simultaneously ignored and exploited. When Carmen needed help with her mortgage payments, the family turned to Elena, the successful businesswoman. When extended relatives needed catering for special events, Elena's restaurants were expected to provide services at cost or for free as family contributions. My attempts to establish boundaries around business requests and family obligations were met with accusations of selfishness and reminders about family loyalty that should supersede individual concerns about profit or professional commitments. The pattern had reached a breaking point 6 months earlier when I declined to cater Carmen's anniversary party for free, explaining that my restaurants were businesses rather than family hobby projects. The response was immediate criticism about my priorities and character. "Elena has become so focused on money that she's forgotten about family relationships," Carmen had told our parents, who'd supported her position that my restaurant should provide free catering as a sisterly gift rather than a business transaction. The conflict had created ongoing tension that culminated in my exclusion from Thanksgiving dinner, an exclusion that would reveal exactly how much power the dismissed family member had accumulated while everyone else focused on conventional success and traditional relationship priorities. My parents had decided that Elena's restaurant obsession made her too difficult to accommodate during family celebrations, not realizing that their chosen venue for avoiding Elena would put them entirely at Elena's mercy. The planning for Mom's elaborate Thanksgiving celebration had been happening around me rather than including me for the past 2 months, with family members making references to the dinner and restaurant reservations, while carefully avoiding details that might reveal I hadn't been invited to the family's most important annual gathering. The first sign of my exclusion came during Carmen's birthday dinner in September, when Mom casually mentioned that she was handling all the Thanksgiving arrangements this year, and that everyone should save the date for something really special. The conversation continued with details about dress codes and dietary accommodations that clearly involved significant planning, but no one asked for my input or preferences. When I inquired about the Thanksgiving plans, Mom's response was vague and deflecting, focusing on how busy everyone was with work and family obligations rather than providing specific information about timing, location, or guest lists. "Elena, you know how hectic your restaurant schedule gets during the holidays," Mom had said when I pressed for details. "We thought it would be easier for everyone if we handled the arrangements without adding to your workload." The suggestion that my exclusion was motivated by concern for my business obligations was manipulative and revealed that they'd already decided I wouldn't be attending before determining whether I was actually available or interested in participating. Over the following weeks, family conversations became increasingly careful around me, with relatives changing subjects when I entered rooms and ending phone calls abruptly when I appeared. The behavior was suspicious, but not definitively exclusionary, until I began hearing specific details through extended family members who assumed I was involved in the planning process. Aunt Rosa mentioned during a grocery store encounter that she was so excited about Elena's family's fancy Thanksgiving dinner at that beautiful Italian restaurant. When I asked for clarification, her expression revealed that she'd accidentally disclosed information I wasn't supposed to have. "Elena, I'm sure your mother will call you with all the details," Aunt Rosa had said uncomfortably, realizing she'd revealed the family's Thanksgiving plans to someone who apparently wasn't included in them. My investigation into the family's Thanksgiving arrangements revealed that Mom had made reservations for 18 people at Bella Vista for an elaborate holiday dinner that would include extended family friends, and Carmen's in-laws. The guest list was comprehensive and carefully planned, with the notable exception of the restaurant owner, who apparently wasn't considered essential to the family celebration. The irony was perfect and devastating. My family had chosen my own restaurant for their celebration while deliberately excluding me from the guest list. They were planning to enjoy the hospitality, ambience, and cuisine I'd created while making clear that my presence wasn't valued or desired at their holiday gathering. But the most painful discovery was that Carmen had been actively involved in planning the exclusion, suggesting Bella Vista as the venue while knowing it was my restaurant, and supporting Mom's decision to uninvite me from the family's most important annual tradition. "I think Bella Vista would be perfect for our family dinner," Carmen had apparently told Mom during the venue selection process. "It's elegant and sophisticated, and Elena won't have any excuse to miss dinner because of work obligations since the restaurant will be closed on Thanksgiving." The calculation was breathtaking. Carmen had suggested my own restaurant as the venue while simultaneously supporting my exclusion from the celebration, creating a situation where I'd be excluded from family Thanksgiving while they enjoyed the fruits of my business success. Extended family members began calling with questions about their roles in the Thanksgiving dinner, assuming I was coordinating with Mom on arrangements and logistics. Each conversation revealed more details about the elaborate celebration that had been planned around my exclusion. "Elena, your mother mentioned that Bella Vista has a special holiday menu," Uncle Miguel asked during one of these calls. "Should we arrive early to review wine selections, or has the family already chosen pairings for the dinner?" The assumption that I was involved in coordinating my own family's celebration at my restaurant, when I hadn't even been invited to attend, was surreal and highlighted how completely my family had compartmentalized their business relationship with my restaurants from their personal relationship with me. My decision to let the reservations proceed without revealing my ownership was strategic rather than vindictive. I wanted my family to commit fully to their celebration plans before discovering that their chosen venue was controlled by the family member they'd decided was too problematic to include in their holiday gathering. The 2 weeks leading up to Thanksgiving were filled with family members calling Bella Vista to modify reservations, request special accommodations, and coordinate details for what they clearly considered a very important and elaborate celebration. Each call was handled professionally by my staff, who knew better than to reveal ownership information to people making inquiries. But the most revealing aspect of their planning was the casual way family members discussed the expense and exclusivity of their chosen venue, bragging to friends and extended relatives about the upscale restaurant and sophisticated celebration that demonstrated the Rodriguez family's success and good taste. "We are having Thanksgiving dinner at Bella Vista," Mom had apparently told her Bridge Club, which is the most exclusive restaurant in the city. "It shows that our family appreciates fine dining and elegant celebrations." The pride they took in associating with my restaurant while excluding me from their celebration was the final confirmation that my family viewed my business success as community property to be enjoyed and celebrated, while viewing me personally as too problematic for inclusion in family traditions. As Thanksgiving approached and my family finalized their elaborate dinner arrangements at my restaurant, I was planning the revelation that would teach them about the relationship between respect and access to exclusive establishments. The family that had chosen to celebrate without Elena was about to discover that Elena controlled their ability to celebrate at all. The phone call from my cousin Maria on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving was the moment my family's carefully planned exclusion began to unravel. Maria had called innocently, assuming I was part of the family celebration, and asking about coordination details that revealed just how elaborate Mom's dinner had become. "Elena, I'm so excited about Thursday's dinner at Bella Vista," Maria said enthusiastically. "Aunt Carmen told me you'd probably coordinate with the restaurant about wine pairings since you know so much about food service. What should I wear? I heard it's very upscale." The assumption that I'd be coordinating with my own restaurant for a family dinner I hadn't been invited to was ironic and painful, highlighting how my family had compartmentalized the use of my business success from their personal relationship with me. "Maria," I said carefully, "what exactly did Mom tell you about my involvement in Thursday's dinner?" The pause that followed revealed that Maria was beginning to realize she'd stumbled into a family conflict she hadn't anticipated. "Elena, aren't you going to Thanksgiving dinner with the family?" Maria asked, her voice reflecting growing confusion about why she knew more about my family's plans than I did. "I haven't been invited to the family Thanksgiving dinner," I said simply, letting the truth settle into our conversation without emotional elaboration or detailed explanation. Maria's reaction was immediate shock and indignation that quickly transformed into investigative curiosity about how such an obvious exclusion could have occurred. "Elena, that's impossible," Maria said firmly. "Aunt Carmen specifically mentioned that the whole family would be there, and she talked about how perfect Bella Vista would be because everyone could enjoy sophisticated dining together." The reference to everyone enjoying sophisticated dining while I was deliberately excluded was particularly painful, since they were planning to enjoy the sophisticated dining I'd created at the restaurant I owned. "Maria, did Mom or Carmen mention who owns Bella Vista?" I asked, curious about whether my family had researched the restaurant they'd chosen for their celebration without me. "No, why would that matter?" Maria asked, apparently not understanding the significance of ownership information for restaurant reservations. That's when I realized my family had no idea they'd chosen my restaurant for their celebration, making their exclusion of me even more ironic and providing me with the perfect opportunity to teach them about respect and access to exclusive establishments. "Maria, I own Bella Vista," I said calmly, letting that information transform her understanding of the family's Thanksgiving situation. The silence that followed was profound as Maria processed that our family had planned an elaborate celebration at my restaurant while deliberately excluding me from the guest list. "Elena, are you serious?" Maria asked, her voice reflecting the beginning of understanding about how complicated this situation was about to become. "I've owned Bella Vista for 3 years," I confirmed. "It's the flagship restaurant in my portfolio, and Mom made reservations there for 18 people, while specifically excluding me from the family celebration." Maria's reaction shifted from shock to outrage, as she understood that our family had planned to enjoy my restaurant's hospitality, while making clear that my presence wasn't valued at their holiday gathering. "Elena, this is insane," Maria said, her voice reflecting genuine anger about the family dynamics she was discovering. "They can't exclude you from Thanksgiving dinner, and then have the celebration at your own restaurant. That's beyond cruel, it's stupid." But Maria's outrage was quickly followed by curiosity about what I planned to do with the power I held over my family's celebration plans. "Elena, what are you going to do about Thursday's dinner?" Maria asked. "You could cancel their reservations, couldn't you?" The suggestion that I could cancel their reservations was tempting, but not strategically optimal. I had a better plan for handling my family's exclusion and their use of my restaurant for celebrating without me. "Maria, I'm going to let their dinner proceed exactly as planned," I said, "but I'm going to make sure they understand exactly who provided the venue for their family celebration without Elena." My plan was elegant in its simplicity and devastating in its implications. I would allow my family to enjoy their elaborate Thanksgiving dinner at my restaurant, but they would discover my ownership at exactly the moment when their celebration was most dependent on my goodwill and hospitality. The timing would be perfect. Just as they were enjoying the peak of their sophisticated dining experience, they'd learn that their excluded family member was actually their host, their venue owner, and the person whose business success had made their celebration possible. "Elena, I think I should tell Aunt Carmen about this before Thursday," Maria suggested, apparently concerned about the confrontation that would inevitably occur when my ownership was revealed. "Maria, please don't say anything to the family before Thursday," I requested. "I want them to commit fully to their celebration before they understand how much their excluded family member controls their ability to celebrate at all." The strategic element was important because I wanted my family to experience the full irony of using my restaurant to celebrate without me before they had opportunity to change venues or modify their plans to avoid confronting their treatment of the successful family member they'd decided was too problematic to include. Maria agreed to keep my ownership information confidential until the Thanksgiving dinner, understanding that the revelation would be more impactful if it occurred during the celebration rather than beforehand. "Elena, I'm going to be very interested to see their faces when they realize what they've done," Maria said with obvious anticipation of the family drama that would unfold on Thursday. As I finalized my plans for handling Thursday's dinner, I felt a combination of anticipation and sadness about what was about to occur. The family that had excluded me from their most important annual tradition was about to learn that their sophisticated celebration was entirely dependent on the hospitality and business success of the daughter and sister they deemed unworthy of inclusion. But more importantly, they were about to understand that respect and access to exclusive establishments weren't automatically granted just because someone shared DNA with the owner. Family relationships required mutual consideration and appreciation, not just one-sided accommodation of other people's preferences and priorities. The Thanksgiving dinner, that was supposed to demonstrate how well the Rodriguez family functioned without Elena, was about to become a lesson about how much they actually depended on Elena's business success and professional achievements for their access to the finer things in life they enjoyed. Thursday afternoon arrived with perfect November weather and my restaurant buzzing with preparation for what my staff believed was just another important private dining reservation. They had no idea they were about to witness a family confrontation that would expose years of dysfunction and reveal the price of excluding the person who'd built the empire everyone else took for granted. I arrived at Bella Vista 2 hours before my family's reservation, ostensibly to oversee the holiday service, but actually to position myself for the revelation that would transform their celebration into my business demonstration. The private dining room was elegantly prepared with fall decorations, premium linens, and the seasonal menu I'd designed specifically for sophisticated holiday entertaining. My family began arriving at 5 o'clock, dressed in their finest clothing and clearly excited about their exclusive dining experience at the city's premier restaurant. I watched through the kitchen cameras as they entered the private dining room, with Mom taking obvious pride in the elegant surroundings and Carmen making appreciative comments about the sophisticated ambience. "This place is absolutely beautiful," I heard Carmen tell her husband through the audio system we used for service coordination. Mom really outdid herself choosing such an upscale venue for our family dinner. The credit Mom was receiving for selecting my restaurant while I watched from the kitchen was ironic and painful, highlighting how my business achievements were appreciated when they served my family's purposes, but ignored when it came to including me in their celebrations. The dinner service began flawlessly, with my professional staff providing the exceptional hospitality that had made Bella Vista the city's most sought-after dining destination. Each course was presented with artistic precision, and the wine pairings I'd selected complemented the seasonal menu perfectly. My family's enjoyment was obvious and enthusiastic, with multiple comments about the food quality, service excellence, and overall dining experience that justified their choice of venue for such an important family celebration. "This is definitely the best Thanksgiving dinner we've ever had," Uncle Miguel announced during the main course. "The food is incredible, and the service is absolutely professional. This restaurant sets the standard for fine dining in our city. The praise for my restaurant's food and service was gratifying, but also highlighted the irony that my family was celebrating my professional achievements while simultaneously excluding me from their family gathering. But the most revealing aspect of their dinner conversation was how they discussed their absent family member, me, during the celebration they'd planned without my inclusion. It's actually relaxing to have a family dinner without Elena's restaurant stress and work obsession, Mom said during what she probably thought was private conversation with Carmen. She would have spent the entire evening critiquing the service or talking about business operations instead of focusing on family time. The characterization of my restaurant expertise as work obsession that would have disrupted their celebration was particularly offensive, since they were currently enjoying the fruits of that supposed obsession at the restaurant I'd built through years of dedication and professional excellence. Carmen's contribution to the conversation about their absent sister was even more revealing about the calculations behind my exclusion. Elena has gotten so focused on her restaurants that she doesn't understand family priorities anymore, Carmen said. It's better for everyone when she's not constantly trying to turn family gatherings into business networking opportunities. The suggestion that I used family gatherings for business networking was false and manipulative, designed to justify their exclusion while ignoring the years of financial support and professional expertise I'd provided to family members when they needed assistance with catering, event planning, and hospitality services. By 7 o'clock, my family was thoroughly enjoying their dessert course and expressing unanimous satisfaction with their Thanksgiving celebration venue. The timing was perfect for the revelation that would transform their appreciation into understanding about the relationship between respect and access to exclusive establishments. I entered the private dining room wearing my chef's coat and carrying the evening's wine selection, presenting myself as the restaurant owner they hadn't realized they'd been depending on for their sophisticated celebration. "Good evening, everyone," I said calmly, setting the wine bottle on their table while making eye contact with each family member. "I hope you've enjoyed your Thanksgiving dinner at my restaurant." The silence that followed was complete and devastating as 18 family members processed that their excluded daughter and sister was actually their host, their venue owner, and the person whose business success had made the celebration possible. Mom's face went white as she realized the magnitude of what they'd done, choosing my restaurant for their family celebration while deliberately excluding me from the guest list. "Elena, what do you mean your restaurant?" Mom asked, her voice reflecting desperate hope that I was exaggerating my role or making some kind of joke about the situation. "I own Bella Vista," I replied simply. "I've owned it for 3 years, and I designed tonight's menu specifically for sophisticated holiday entertaining. You've been enjoying my hospitality while celebrating Thanksgiving without me." Carmen's reaction was immediate denial rather than acknowledgement of the irony in their situation. "Elena, that's impossible," Carmen said, her voice reflecting refusal to accept what she was hearing. "You own small neighborhood restaurants, not upscale dining establishments like this." The dismissive characterization of my restaurant portfolio was typical of how Carmen had always minimized my business achievements, but it was particularly offensive when delivered in my own restaurant while enjoying the sophisticated dining experience I'd created. "Carmen, would you like to see the ownership documents?" I asked, producing legal papers that proved my claims about owning the restaurant where they were currently celebrating their family tradition without me. Have you ever watched entitled family members realize that the person they'd excluded actually controlled everything they were enjoying? When their assumptions about your success and their right to access your achievements suddenly collapsed. Share your thoughts about family business dynamics in the comments below, because what happened next would teach my family exactly why respect matters more than blood relationships. Uncle Miguel was the first to understand the full implications of what had been revealed. "Elena, we are having our family Thanksgiving dinner at your restaurant, and you weren't invited to join us," he asked, his voice reflecting growing understanding of how cruel and ironic the situation was. "That's exactly what happened," I confirmed. Mom made reservations for 18 people at my restaurant while specifically excluding me from the family celebration. The revelation transformed their sophisticated celebration into an uncomfortable confrontation about family priorities and the consequences of excluding the person whose business success had made the exclusive dining experience possible. As my family processed the reality that their holiday celebration was entirely dependent on the hospitality of the family member they deemed unworthy of inclusion, I prepared to deliver the business lesson that would change our relationship dynamics permanently. The uncomfortable silence in my private dining room stretched for nearly a minute, as my family processed the revelation that their sophisticated Thanksgiving celebration was being hosted by the daughter and sister they deliberately excluded from their holiday gathering. The elegant meal they'd been praising was created by Elena's professional expertise, served in Elena's restaurant, while Elena watched from the kitchen like hired help. Dad was the first to attempt damage control, his voice carefully diplomatic, as he tried to minimize the magnitude of what they'd done to their own family member. "Elena, sweetheart, we had no idea this was your restaurant," Dad said, his tone suggesting that their ignorance somehow excused the deliberate exclusion. "If we'd known you owned Bella Vista, we obviously would have included you in our dinner plans." The suggestion that my inclusion in family Thanksgiving was conditional on their knowledge of my business ownership was revealing about how they viewed family relationships and obligations. "Dad, my ownership of this restaurant doesn't change the fact that you planned a family celebration without me," I replied firmly. "The issue isn't whether you knew where you were dining, it's that you decided I wasn't worth including in our family's most important annual tradition." Mom's response was immediately emotional rather than analytical, focusing on her feelings about the confrontation rather than acknowledging the pain they'd caused by excluding me. "Elena, you're embarrassing us in front of the whole family," Mom said, tears beginning to flow as she realized their private family dynamics were being exposed in front of 18 relatives. "This should be a celebration, not a confrontation about business ownership." The characterization of my response to exclusion as embarrassing family drama was typical of how Mom had always handled conflicts, by making herself the victim and focusing on social appearances rather than addressing the actual problems in our relationships. Carmen's reaction was predictably defensive, attacking my motives for revealing my ownership rather than acknowledging the cruelty of suggesting my restaurant for their celebration while supporting my exclusion. "Elena, you're being dramatic and vindictive," Carmen said, her voice carrying the dismissive tone she'd used to minimize my concerns throughout our lives. "You arranged this whole scene to make us feel guilty about having a nice family dinner." "Carmen, I arranged nothing," I replied calmly. "You suggested my restaurant as the venue for a family celebration I wasn't invited to attend. The irony was created by your choices, not my planning." But Carmen wasn't finished attacking my character and motives, apparently believing that offense was better defense when confronted with the consequences of her behavior. "Elena has always been jealous of our family relationships," Carmen told the table, speaking about me in third person despite my presence. "She uses her restaurant success to manipulate family situations and make everything about her business achievements." The accusation that I was manipulating the situation for attention was particularly offensive, since they were literally celebrating at my restaurant while having deliberately excluded me from joining them. Extended family members, who'd been enjoying the sophisticated dining experience, were beginning to understand the full scope of what had occurred and to express their own opinions about the family dynamics they were witnessing. Aunt Rosa spoke directly to Mom with obvious disapproval about the exclusion and its cruel irony. "Carmen, how could you plan a family Thanksgiving dinner at Elena's restaurant without inviting Elena to join the celebration?" Aunt Rosa asked. "That's beyond thoughtless, it's deliberately hurtful." Uncle Miguel's assessment was even more direct and damning about the family's treatment of their successful daughter and sister. "This is the most ridiculous family situation I've ever witnessed," Uncle Miguel said, his voice reflecting genuine anger about what had been done to me. Elena built a beautiful restaurant that provides the perfect setting for family celebrations, and her own family excludes her from their holiday dinner. That's not family, that's exploitation. The external validation from extended family was gratifying, but also highlighted how obvious the dysfunction was to people who weren't directly involved in the emotional manipulation and favoritism that had characterized our family relationships for years. Cousin Maria's contribution was particularly supportive and revealing about how my exclusion appeared to relatives who understood both my business success and my family's treatment of that success. Elena has always been the most generous family member, providing catering for family events and business expertise when anyone needed help, Maria said firmly. Excluding her from Thanksgiving dinner while enjoying her restaurant is ungrateful and cruel. But my parents and Carmen remained focused on defending their decision and attacking my character rather than acknowledging the pain and irony of what they'd done. Elena makes everything about her restaurants and her business success, Mom said, apparently believing that my professional achievements were somehow problematic rather than impressive. We wanted one family gathering that focused on relationships instead of restaurant operations. The suggestion that my success was incompatible with family relationships was particularly painful, since I'd spent years trying to balance business obligations with family expectations while providing financial support and professional services whenever requested. Mom, you're enjoying my restaurant's food, service, and ambience right now, I pointed out. The professional expertise you're criticizing is the reason you're having such a sophisticated celebration. My decision to address the situation publicly in front of extended family was strategic rather than vindictive. I wanted witnesses to the family dynamics that had led to my exclusion, and I wanted my parents and Carmen to understand that their treatment of me would have social consequences beyond our immediate relationships. The conversation was revealing family patterns and priorities that relatives had witnessed but never confronted, with several people expressing surprise about the systematic way my achievements had been minimized while Carmen's conventional milestones were celebrated. I had no idea that Elena's restaurant success was being treated as a problem rather than something to celebrate, Cousin David said. She's built something incredible, and the family should be proud instead of critical. As the confrontation continued, it became clear that my family was divided between people who supported my position and people who continued defending the exclusion and attacking my response to it. But the most important outcome was that my business ownership was now public knowledge, which meant future family celebrations would need to acknowledge my success and contributions rather than treating them as background details that could be ignored when convenient. The revelation that would change our family dynamics permanently was still coming, and it would establish new rules for how my professional achievements would be acknowledged and respected in future family interactions. The private dining room had become a battlefield of family loyalties and competing narratives about respect, success, and holiday traditions. As extended family members processed the revelation that I owned the restaurant hosting their celebration, the conversation evolved from personal conflict to broader questions about how families should treat successful members and business ownership. The most immediate practical question came from Uncle Miguel, who was beginning to understand the business implications of the situation they'd created. Elena, what does this mean for tonight's dinner? Uncle Miguel asked. Are you asking us to leave, or can we continue the celebration despite this family conflict? The question gave me the opportunity to demonstrate the difference between personal hurt and professional standards while establishing new boundaries around how my business success would be acknowledged in future family interactions. Uncle Miguel, everyone is welcome to finish their dinner and enjoy the rest of the evening, I said professionally. My restaurant provides exceptional hospitality to all guests, regardless of personal relationships or family dynamics. But my professional courtesy was combined with clear expectations about future family celebrations and business requests. However, I want everyone to understand that this restaurant is my business, not a family resource available for celebrations that exclude me, I continued firmly. Future family events at any of my restaurants will require acknowledging my ownership and including me in planning discussions. The establishment of business boundaries was necessary and overdue, but it was met with immediate resistance from family members who'd grown comfortable treating my restaurants as community resources available for their convenience. "Elena, you can't hold family celebrations hostage to your business ownership," Carmen said, her voice reflecting entitlement to access my restaurants regardless of how I was treated personally. "Carmen, I'm not holding anything hostage," I replied calmly. "I'm establishing professional boundaries about how my businesses will be used for family events. Respect and inclusion are prerequisites for access to exclusive establishments." Mom's response revealed how she'd fundamentally misunderstood the relationship between family relationships and business success. "Elena, family should be more important than business profits," Mom said, apparently believing that emotional relationships should override professional boundaries and business policies. "Mom, this isn't about business profits," I explained patiently. "This is about being treated with basic respect by people who want to benefit from my professional achievements." The conversation was exposing years of family assumptions about my obligation to provide business services regardless of personal treatment, while highlighting the entitlement that had led to my exclusion from celebrations held at my own establishments. Dad attempted to broker a compromise that would allow them to continue enjoying my restaurant's hospitality without acknowledging the fundamental problems in our family dynamics. "Elena, can we agree to discuss this family situation privately after tonight's dinner?" Dad suggested. "We don't want to ruin Thanksgiving for everyone by having this conversation in front of the whole family." "Dad, the conversation is happening now because the exclusion happened now," I replied firmly. "You can't use my restaurant to celebrate while avoiding accountability for how you've treated the restaurant owner." The strategic timing was important because I wanted my family to understand that business access came with social responsibilities and that they couldn't compartmentalize their use of my professional success from their personal treatment of me. Extended family members were beginning to express their own opinions about the business and personal dynamics they were witnessing, with most supporting my position about respect and inclusion. "Elena has every right to establish boundaries about how her businesses are used for family celebrations," Cousin Maria said firmly. "You can't exclude someone from family events and then expect automatic access to their professional resources." Aunt Rose's assessment was particularly supportive and revealing about how my exclusion appeared to relatives who understood the business implications. "This is Elena's restaurant, and she's providing beautiful hospitality despite being treated terribly by her own immediate family," Aunt Rosa said. "The least everyone can do is acknowledge her generosity and apologize for the exclusion." But the most significant development was the conversation among extended family members about future holiday celebrations and family events, with several people expressing interest in working directly with me for restaurant reservations and catering services. "Elena, I'd love to book a private dinner at Bella Vista for my anniversary next month," Cousin David said. "Can we discuss arrangements that acknowledge your ownership and include you in the celebration?" The direct business requests from extended family members were professionally gratifying, but also socially significant, because they established new norms around how my restaurants would be used for family events. "David, I'd be happy to discuss anniversary dinner arrangements," I replied professionally. "All my restaurants provide exceptional service for celebrations that include appropriate recognition of business ownership and professional expertise." The business conversations were occurring in front of my parents and Carmen, who were watching extended family members establish new relationships with my restaurants that bypassed their informal coordination role and acknowledged my direct ownership. Mom's reaction to losing control over family restaurant arrangements was immediate and revealing about how she'd viewed her role in managing my business resources. "Elena, you're dividing the family by having separate relationships with different relatives," Mom complained. "Family celebrations should be coordinated through family, not individual business arrangements." "Mom, "You coordinated tonight's celebration by specifically excluding the restaurant owner," I pointed out. Individual business arrangements ensure that everyone is included and that business boundaries are respected. The shift in family dynamics was immediate and permanent, with extended family members recognizing that direct relationships with my restaurants would be more reliable and inclusive than working through my parents, who demonstrated their willingness to exclude me from celebrations while using my businesses. Carmen's response to losing her informal role in family restaurant arrangements was predictably focused on attacking my character rather than acknowledging the consequences of supporting my exclusion. "Elena is using her business ownership to manipulate family relationships and force people to choose sides," Carmen said, apparently believing that establishing professional boundaries was manipulation rather than reasonable business practice. "Carmen, I'm not forcing anyone to choose sides," I replied calmly. "I'm establishing clear policies about respect and inclusion that apply to anyone who wants to use my restaurants for celebrations. The professional standards I was implementing were reasonable and necessary, but they represented a fundamental shift from previous family dynamics, where my business success was treated as community property available for everyone's benefit regardless of how I was treated personally." Uncle Miguel's assessment of the new arrangement was particularly supportive and understanding of the business implications. "Elena's establishing professional boundaries that any successful business owner should maintain," Uncle Miguel said. "Family relationships don't create automatic entitlement to business services, especially when those relationships exclude the business owner from celebrations." As the evening continued, the conversation evolved from confrontation about tonight's exclusion to negotiation about future family celebration policies and business arrangements that would acknowledge my ownership while ensuring inclusive family gatherings. The practical outcome was that my parents and Carmen would need to include me in planning discussions for any future family events at my restaurants, while extended family members could work with me directly for their own celebrations and catering needs. But the most important outcome was social recognition of my business achievements and professional success by family members who'd previously viewed my restaurants as interesting hobbies rather than significant business enterprises. The Thanksgiving dinner, that was supposed to demonstrate how well the Rodriguez family functioned without Elena, had instead become the event that established Elena as the central figure whose business success and professional expertise were essential for future family celebrations at the level of sophistication and exclusivity everyone had come to expect. The power dynamic had shifted permanently, with family members who wanted access to premium dining experiences and professional catering services needing to maintain respectful relationships with the restaurant owner they'd previously taken for granted. 1 year after the Thanksgiving confrontation that transformed our family dynamics permanently, I was standing in the expanded Bella Vista, overseeing preparations for our second annual Inclusive Family Thanksgiving celebration, a tradition I'd established to ensure that all family members who wanted to participate in holiday gatherings were automatically included, regardless of previous conflicts or relationship tensions. The new family tradition had attracted extended relatives who'd witnessed the previous year's confrontation and appreciated both the inclusive policies and the exceptional dining experience that my restaurant expertise provided. This year's reservation included 23 family members, with several new additions who'd specifically requested to join our celebration. My parents' journey toward acknowledging my business success and apologizing for the exclusion had been gradual and incomplete, but they'd eventually recognized that their treatment of me had been both cruel and strategically foolish. "Elena, we realize now that we made terrible mistakes with last year's Thanksgiving planning," Mom had said during one of our family therapy sessions 6 months after the restaurant confrontation. "We let our concerns about your work schedule become excuses for excluding you from family celebrations, and we never acknowledged how much your success contributed to our ability to have sophisticated gatherings." The apology was partial progress, but it was combined with ongoing expectations that I should provide restaurant services at reduced rates or with family discounts that reflected our personal relationships rather than standard business practices. We understand that you own successful restaurants, Dad had added during the same conversation, but we hope that family celebrations can still receive special consideration because of our personal relationships. My response to requests for family discounts and special considerations was consistent with the professional boundaries I'd established after the Thanksgiving exclusion. Dad, my restaurants provide exceptional value and service to all clients, I'd replied. Family celebrations receive the same high standards and professional pricing as any other private dining events. The establishment of professional boundaries had been challenging for family members who'd grown comfortable treating my business success as community property, but it had ultimately improved our relationships by creating clear expectations about respect and inclusion. Carmen's adjustment to the new family dynamics had been the most difficult, and revealing about how she'd previously viewed my role in family celebrations and business arrangements. Elena, I still think you're being unnecessarily rigid about family restaurant policies, Carmen had complained during a particularly tense family discussion about holiday planning. Family should get special treatment because we're family. Carmen, family gets special treatment by being included in celebrations and having their achievements acknowledged, I'd replied firmly. Professional services are provided at professional standards regardless of personal relationships. But Carmen's resistance to the new family dynamics had gradually softened, as she'd experienced the benefits of inclusive celebrations and professional service standards that ensured everyone's preferences and dietary needs were accommodated. I have to admit that your restaurant celebrations are much more sophisticated and enjoyable than anything we could organize ourselves, Carmen had eventually acknowledged. The food quality and service standards are incredible. Extended family relationships had flourished under the new inclusive policies, with relatives planning their own celebrations at my restaurants and expressing appreciation for both the professional service and the family connection that made their events special. Elena, having family celebrations at your restaurants makes everything more special because we are supporting your business success while enjoying exceptional hospitality, Cousin Maria had told me during her daughter's graduation party at my newest location. The business success that had grown from establishing professional boundaries with family members was significant and unexpected. Word had spread through our community about the restaurant owner who'd successfully balanced family relationships with business standards, attracting clients who valued integrity and professional service. Ms. Rodriguez, we heard about how you handle family-business relationships, and that's exactly the kind of professionalism we want for our corporate events, explained one major client during contract negotiations. Someone who maintains standards even with family will definitely maintain standards for business clients. My restaurant portfolio had expanded to include 4 locations, each specializing in different aspects of fine dining and event hosting. The business growth that had resulted from establishing boundaries and demanding respect was validating my decision to prioritize professional integrity over family accommodation. But the most satisfying development was the annual inclusive family Thanksgiving tradition I'd created, which had become the highlight of our family's holiday celebration, and a model for how successful families could acknowledge everyone's contributions while enjoying shared traditions. This year's celebration included new family members who'd joined through marriage or birth, extended relatives who'd moved back to the area, and family friends who'd been embraced as chosen family through years of mutual support and celebration. Elena, this Thanksgiving tradition you created is the best thing that's happened to our family in years, Uncle Miguel told me during cocktail hour. Everyone feels included and appreciated, and the celebration reflects the kind of sophisticated gathering that honors everyone's achievements. The inclusive policies I'd implemented ensured that family members who wanted to contribute to celebration planning were welcomed and acknowledged, while those who preferred to simply attend and enjoy were accommodated without judgment or pressure. My relationship with Ryan, a fellow restaurant owner I'd met through industry networking events, had developed into the kind of partnership I'd always envisioned, built on mutual professional respect, shared business goals, and appreciation for each other's achievements without competition or resentment. Elena, what I love about you is how you've created family traditions that reflect your values about inclusion and professional excellence, Ryan had told me during our engagement celebration at Bella Vista earlier that year. You've shown me that family relationships can be healthy and supportive when they are built on mutual respect rather than obligation and accommodation. Our wedding, planned for the following spring, would be held at my original restaurant location with catering provided by my expanded restaurant team and guest list that included family members who'd learned to celebrate my success rather than exploiting or minimizing it. The prenuptial agreement we'd drafted included provisions for combining our restaurant businesses while maintaining individual ownership and creative control that reflected our shared commitment to professional excellence and equitable partnership. As I looked around the private dining room filled with family members who were genuinely enjoying each other's company while celebrating in the restaurant I'd built through years of dedication and professional expertise, I reflected on the year that had transformed family exclusion into business opportunity and personal growth. The Thanksgiving dinner, that was supposed to demonstrate how well my family functioned without me, had instead revealed how much they depended on my professional success and business expertise for the sophisticated celebrations they'd come to expect and appreciate. Have you ever been excluded from family events only to discover that you held all the power they never realized they needed? When you learned that your success was more valuable than their approval, and that respect was more important than accommodation? Share your experiences with family business boundaries in the comments below, because your courage to demand inclusion might inspire someone else who's being taken for granted by people who should be celebrating their achievements. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life family business drama and boundary-setting stories. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear that it's okay to establish professional boundaries with family members, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to provide services to people who don't respect the service provider. Thank you for joining me on this journey from family exclusion to business empowerment and inclusive celebrations, for supporting my decision to choose professional boundaries over family accommodation, and for understanding that healthy families acknowledge everyone's contributions rather than taking successful members for granted. Remember, you don't owe anyone access to your business success just because you share DNA, and you're not obligated to provide professional services to people who exclude you from the celebrations those services make possible. You deserve family members who celebrate your achievements rather than exploiting them while minimizing your contributions. The sweetest victory isn't revenge or exclusion. The sweetest victory is building traditions so inclusive and professional that people who once took you for granted now understand that your presence and expertise are essential for the celebrations they want to enjoy. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply establish boundaries that require respect as the price of access to the success you've built through your own hard work and professional dedication.